today we will be looking at this topic, living wisely by making wise use of what we have in times like this. As human beings, we tend to worry so much about what we don't have or what we don't know. Whereas there's a lot that the Lord has provided for us that will meet our needs if we can be conscious of what they are and then exploit them and deploy them accordingly. So that is why we'll be dealing with these questions about what do we have? What do we have? And in the Bible, there were people that the Lord had engaged to do an assignment, one assignment or the other. But they like us too, they ask questions. The normal thing is to say, Lord, what do I have? Who am I that I'm going to carry these things, assignment out? Yeah. So we are not alone. Those who have gone before us in this way of the faith, they face the same challenges. So today, we will start looking at those questions, the ones that those who have gone before us have handled, and then those of us, the ones we are facing today, so that we know how to navigate this life. When the Lord told Moses that he was going to deliver the children of Israel from the hands of Pharaoh and the Egyptians, and there were so many things that Moses had to talk about. First of all, he wasn't even sure of himself because he has faced so many challenges, and all this time he was there in the wilderness without any future, whatever it is. It's like somebody who has hit the walls and didn't know where else to go. And the Lord now called him in a very unusual way, that it was through the burning bush, which God used to call his attention. And then after talking to him, and the Lord now said to him, okay, you are going to lead these children of Israel out of this bondage they have been for over 400 years. And so they were wondering how that was going to happen. And when the Lord spoke specifically to Moses about going to confront Pharaoh, then the question that Moses posed was, he said, who am I? How am I going to do it? And what do I have? They won't even listen to me. They won't recognize me. Who am I? Then the Lord said to him, what is it that is in your hand? I want us to take note of that question. What he had in his hand that time was a rod. And this was the rod that he caught. It was a fresh branch of a tree, or maybe he pulled up a tree, a plant. And then by the time he started using it, it was very fresh. And after many years that have passed, and this time that God was confronting him, the stick was very dry. And I also want us to take note of this, because the first question, or the first thing that the Lord told him when the Lord called his attention to that burning bush, and he approached to see what was happening. The first thing that the Lord told me, he said, Moses, remove your sandals, because where you are standing is holy. Then look at it. Moses had been in those places, in that particular place for many years. He's been going around leading the sheep, leading them in and out, encountering the predators, chasing them away with that his stick. But at that time, now, on that place was standing, the Lord said, where you are standing is holy ground. And the first lesson we need to learn from that is this fact that it is where God is that makes the difference. What made that difference at that time was because God was there. It was a common place, a common ground, a usual place. But by the time God was speaking from that spot, it had changed the situation. That land was no longer an ordinary land. It was a holy ground because of the presence of God. And the same thing now, when the Lord asked him, he said, it's an ordinary staff, just the stick that I was using. But then that stick became an extraordinary tool because of what God now did with it. Because when God asked him, what is it in your hand? He said, a staff. He just described the reality, what he was. And that staff was just a common thing that he was using to drive the cattle. But God was going to show him that when that thing transfers to God's hand, it changes situation. And that is one of the things that we need to take note of. It is the presence of God that makes a difference wherever place we are located. And then it is also whatever thing that is common that God has given to us or we are used to. Even maybe after all, it was not God that caught that stick and gave it to him. He caught it himself. And he had been using it to do his own things. But this time around, God wanted to demonstrate to him what happens when we recognize the source of our strength. And that was why what followed was that God told him to cast that, to throw that staff on the ground. And we know what that staff became. So it became a serpent. And you know what serpent represented. It was something that was very powerful and fearful. But let us also remember what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 10, verse 16, when he said he has sent us into the midst of wolves. Then he started talking about the things we will face. He said we will face the lions. We will be like sheep in the midst of wolves. But then he said, let us be wise as serpent and harmless as dove. And so you can then imagine why that thing turned into a serpent. Then God told him to hold it at the tail. And it will take courage and faith in God to hold a serpent at the tail. But because God was the one speaking, it changed that situation, because when he held the serpent at the tail, it didn't turn to destroy him. It returned to what it was before. And then from there on, that rod became the rod of the Lord. The rod of the Lord. And we know then what he did with that rod. But with that rod, he parted the sea. For that rod, he commanded for manna to come and many other things. The miracles that happened. The rod that became the rod of God. Ordinary rod that became the rod of God. And so it is then very important for us to understand these principles. That what is ordinary in our hands becomes extraordinary in the hands of God. That's the first question that we are dealing with. The other one was what happened to the wife of a prophet this prophet was so destitute that he borrowed a lot of money, which he couldn't pay until he died. And when he died, the people that he was owing came after his children. They wanted to take the children as collateral for the debt that he owed. And then this poor woman who had lost the husband and the privileges that she had as a wife of a prophet, and now the only consolation that she had, which was the children, the creditors of her late husband wanted to take up those children. You can imagine how desperate that woman would have felt. And then she ran to the prophet of the prophets, the father of the prophets in that day, and then said what she said. We are coming to look at it in detail. But then the man of God told him, how can I help you? If God doesn't help you, there's nothing I can do about that. And I want us to take note of this too. That whatever challenge we face, whatever need that we face, if God does not help us, no other person can help us. Because God is the true source of our supplies. And he uses human beings as channels. Most of the time we mistake human beings for our source. And that's why at times we go to the channels before we now start looking to the source. The best thing is for us to look onto the source, because the source determines the channels that he uses. That's one of the lessons that Elijah had to learn. And when he obeyed God, fighting against the Baals, the prophets of Baals, obeyed God, and then at his word, the heavens were locked up against Israel, and there was no rain in the land of Israel for 3.5 years. But that time, it was God who told him where to go to survive. He didn't have any idea of what he would do, because that famine that he caused, the drought that he caused to come, affected even where he was. But it was God that told him where to go. He said, I have prepared a raven that will be bringing food to you in the place where there's water. God also told him the place where there's water. And God made it possible that the raven was always sending the food there at the right time. That's one of the ways also to understand the ways of God and how he does his things. And when God saw that he was becoming very, very dependent upon the raven and then the brook, because it's possible then, as some of us behave, because this thing was coming very regularly, then we will not pray again. We will not ask God again. We just assumed that it must come. Oh, this is the time that the raven comes, and the raven brings the food at the right time. Then let me just pause here and bring this experience that I was battling with this week. Those of you who are receiving support from the Place of His Glory ministry, if you remember, the last time they sent something to you was September. And that was around August or something like that. It was for that third quarter, because they sent 3 months at a go. And they usually send that the thing in the middle of the quarter. So we are supposed, then this last quarter started by October, beginning of October. October has passed, November passed, and we are now on the how many, today's 10th, and Christmas will end soon. And I know that the money that we would have collected that time, we would have spent them with the anticipation that by November, the last one will come. But 2 months have passed now, and we are now on the 3rd month. And Christmas is approaching, and you know all those things. So I was getting worried. Those of you who are on the platform of the Praise of His Glory ministry beneficiaries, I hinted on it, especially when I was asking you to prepare the report, the end of the year report. I hinted on it that, yeah, the 3rd quarter is coming up. I mean, the 4th quarter is coming to an end, and we anticipate that there's going to be. So yesterday, I had to do what I shouldn't do. I had to do a private chatting with the sister that that sends the money, the check, that pays in the check by the time they approve it. Because I have a special this thing with her, rapport with her. So I just risk it to ask her. It's not normal that you should go and ask the your benefactor. Say, kilo. But for the sake of the missionaries whom I know would have started asking that kilo, and nobody was courageous enough to ask me, Oga, what thing they happen? You told us to write report when we have not come this thing. No, that kind of thing. I know, because people will have been, imagine, if they didn't know, if there's no promise or there's no play that something will come. I mean, they know they wouldn't, nobody expects them to bother. But this one. So that was why I took that risk of yesterday of calling our sister. That's just the staff in the office that takes the check to go and pay into your account when they prepare it or when they ask her. So I didn't ask her yesterday. I said, sister, what thing that happened now? We never hear anything. See how that the month is going to an end. And then the response she gave me really touched me. He said, we are waiting. We are also waiting for money to come in. You know, we are here. I mean, I'm here talking about that we are waited for too long. But she said they too were also waiting for money to come in. And what they are committed to for us is about I think about 18 million for the 3 quarters. I mean for 1 quarter. 1 quarter, because they give the 3 months together at one time. It's about that 18 million for all the missionaries that they are supporting for those 3 months. So they also are waiting for money to come. Then we know now that at least we then know that those people also live by faith, also operate by faith. And so it's like a series of funnels, channels. If the water has not got into the dam, there will be no water that will flow into the reservoir from them before it starts flowing into the tap, and from the tap now into your cup or your bucket. So this, you see now how it is all based on faith and trust. Yeah, thank God that there's no missionary that has resigned, and there's no one that is thinking of calling it a quit, because we all have our plans too and projections of how we're going to spend the money, and this is also how God tests us. So the Lord will want to test us whether our eyes are on the on the channel or still on Him. And then also that question of what do we have? At a time like this, when maybe very uncertainties about what we are used to. That God is also asking us, what do you think you have? What do you have? And in the case of this woman, the question was, what do you have in your house? It was not a question of how much do you have in your bank account, or how much do you have in your savings. But he said now the question changed from what do you have in your house? I mean, for what do you have in your pocket, to what do you have in your house? And that's why we spent more time studying that particular episode, because it has a lot of lessons for us. But the first lesson we need to derive from that is to know that there are so many things we have which can be the answers and solutions to our challenges, our needs. That all that we need to be aware of is their existence. And that's one of the things we will pray today. Brother Ezekiel, take note. So when we're going to round up, that's when we will pray that God will help us and open our eyes to see the things we have which we don't know. And we will be complaining, we will be suffering because we don't have that idea that those things are valuable. So that's one of the essence of this today's studies. And then the prayer we have to pray about. Okay, Sister Tokwe, so take note of that. We have to pray about it, that God will help us. Because this the story I just told us now about the support from the place of His glory, it just struck me, because they don't delay. And if there's anything that is going to happen, they will let us know. But I was just prompted yesterday to ask that question from my sister, and she told me in confidence. Yeah, and I think that's what substantiates even this study we are having today. To know how to, would I say, expand our scope of perception. To know what we have, which we may not be aware until it pushes us otherwise. So this is a question: what do you have in your house? Like I said, that will be the main example we are going to focus more on. So let us take note of the third one. The third question was, what do you have in your midst? What do you have in your midst? This was the question that arose when people have come to the let me say it is let's say crusade or international conference, global conference that was organized. In 5,000 people were fed. Then they said there were women. Then men. How many children and how many women were there in that meeting? And then they have been there for a long time. Then Jesus told the disciples, oh no, it was even the disciples who first discovered the need. They came to Jesus and said, Master, night is coming. Let us close this meeting quickly. Let us close this meeting quickly. Let people go back to their homes and to look for what they will eat. Because where we are is a desert. We don't know how can we get money or how can we get food to feed all of them. How are we going to carry all these burdens on our heads? You know, I have been in that kind of situation long time. You know, even at times, even at conferences, I remember one of the ADCs. When the people in the kitchen told us, say, Oga, we are not out of food though. And what we normally do in that kind of sense, we use sense. We either declare emergency fasting. Not because people want to fast, but because we want to cover our, so that, or we now say, let the conference stop here. And we can give one reason or that. We cut it 3 days or 4 days conference, we cut it to 2. And we wanted to do it. If you remember, one of the recent ones. And then before then, we were challenged. So that when when there were that kind of challenge, that they didn't stop the conference, the meeting. Jesus didn't stop the meeting. What he did was he told the disciples, okay, where do we find something to give them? Of course, they, like us as human beings, they gave excuses. They gave excuses. Well, you don't understand that this place is a desert. Even if we have a place, if we have money to buy it, how many bakeries will bake enough bread for us to feed these people? It's something impossible. But then in this account, Jesus asked them, in this Mark account, Jesus asked them, said, how much bread do you have? And he added, go and find out. It's not a question of saying, how much do you have? But go and find out. Yeah. And at times, if we do not realize that, if the need so overwhelms us that we can't even imagine that there's something that we have, it becomes a problem to us, because we could have bothered ourselves and worried so much before we started even looking at what we have. And at times it could have been after the people have dispersed. And then we look, but there's food here, or there's this one here. But then Andrew, who was also very good at discovering things, he said, but we have 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread. So, but what can this do to this crowd? Because that's another thing, another way we react. Oh, what we have is too small. It cannot meet these needs. There was something that mommy shared with me the other day. Because at times, when she asked these children to prepare food, they will say, we don't have anything. Say, nothing. So this day, she now decided to go through whatever they have there in the fridge and freezers. Discovered that there were soup, there were this many things that had been there, covered. And they will be saying, there's nothing. In that particular case, she had to mop up everything, food, soup and everything that remained, including even what you call it, like amala, that they made and they didn't finish. We didn't finish eating it. They will put them in the freezer, and then they will become like blocks, Such things. She mopped up everything. Said, until we finish these things, no more cooking of anything. Yeah, but people have come when we say, well, we go and do this. He said, nothing. Whereas the fridge was filled and the freezers were filled with leftovers. And we kept bothering ourselves, looking for going to the market. Especially these days, it's very difficult to go to market. Going to market, go and buy fresh things. Whereas there are many leftovers. But she wouldn't have known except she decided to check everything. And that's what Jesus told them there. Because when he said that, they said, nothing. Jesus said, go and find out. Go and find out. Go and check. And of course, they found, even what they found, they were trying to say, oh, it is too small. But Jesus said, give it to me. Which is something that happened in the case of that rod. The ordinary rod, when passed to the hands of the Lord, it becomes a powerful thing. This small quantity of food, what one boy can hold in his hands, Jesus said, give it to me. And when it was passed on to the hands of the Lord, he said it got multiplied. That brings me to another sense, and I've had people share this story. That this one, the practice that we have to pray when we have food, when we want to eat food, we pray over it. It's not just a ritual. It is a means of tapping into the hidden resources of God. Praying over what we have. Praying over, I've had many people share that testimony. People who were driving and they realized that the fuel in the car could not take them to the place where they are going, or even where they could get the next fuel. And what they did was just to pray. They prayed, God, please, this small quantity of fuel, help us that it will take us to where we are going. And God answered and multiplied it. And then, of course, even food. And when we pray like that, you know, there are times we have this food, we look at it and say, this will not go belly from me, as people talk. But you pray over it with thanksgiving. You will see that you will eat and eat and eat and still remain. No wonder then, the Bible also says, or the song we sing says that, oh, what needless pains with will bear. Oh, what needless with all because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. This is another thing that we also have to pray for God to help us to understand. That prayer is a very important tool that God has made available for us in using what we have wisely. Praying over things. Praying always for everything. That it has a way of spiritually elongating or multiplying the lifespan of that thing. So that we bear that in mind as we continue. Okay, we are coming now to this, the application of the ones we have seen so far, using this woman. That is the widow of the deceased debtor prophet. And this is the first 7 verses of chapter 2 Kings chapter 4. I just want us to look at them each. He said, the wife of a man from the company of the prophets cried out to Elisha, your servant, my husband, is dead. And you know that he revered God, he feared God. But now his creditor is coming to take my 2 sons as his slaves. I don't know what happened to him that he accumulated so much mercy. There must be a reason. And I think it's a lesson to us too. Because he's a prophet. And the wife's testimony says, he served God very well. Oh. But there are other things that we as children of God and as servants of God had to take precaution over. That cannot be wished away by the fact that we are servants of God. Some attitudes, some behaviors, some will I call it, some weaknesses that cannot be remedied by the fact that we are just children of God. Because if we are lazy, he says that a lazy man can even go to the bush and you kill an animal and carry it home. He said, but laziness may make you cannot even roast it and to eat it. Hey, I killed an animal and I brought it home. That's there. To prepare it and eat it, though, will not come by faith. It will come by you actually doing what people do to convert that dead animal to flesh that you can eat. But the Bible says that laziness can make somebody who had worked so hard as to having a catch or having a hunt, not to benefit from it. So we should take note of it. Then we also learn from Saul's case. Samuel told him, say that obedience is better than sacrifice. You can sacrifice many other things like that, but there's something obedient. Obedience is the key to open up the way for you to please God and enjoy the blessings. And then Isaiah chapter 1 verse 19 says, too, if we are willing and obedient, we will eat of the good of the land. So willingness with obedience then opens the door for abundance. So we don't know what happened to this missionary. So he worked very hard. He feared God, but he left debts that were now a threat to his family after he has left. So also include that in our prayer. Let us pray that none of us will find ourselves in a position that we accumulate debts and problems for our families or our followers or even the people we lead when you are not there. So that instead of making progress, they will now spend time to clear the things that you have accumulated. And remember, it may not even be the debt of money alone. Because the people who accumulate troubles for their family. There's one brother I knew of. He was so hostile and inconsiderate to Christians, especially Christian families. He was always hitting them. And he was one that was going about saying, God gave me a word for you. He will go and tell them. But let those people do something that crosses his way. He will take it on them. He will now tell them, say, if not for me, you won't be alive. And he was hurting everybody, including the children's school. Anything that happens, he will go there and holler. So he got the point that in this Ibadan, no school wanted to admit his children. They knew him. Of course, no news spreads. All the fellowships that he was part of in Ibadan, they all sacked him. They all expelled him. That's how what we do can now come to haunt people that under us when we are no longer there. That's the lesson we can learn from this depth reading prophet. And we can see the impact on the family. The woman is so harassed now, and the two children were subject to be claimed as collateral. And this told this woman, then he came to Elisha, and told him her experience. Verse 2, Elijah replied to her, how can I help you? Tell me. How can I help you? It's like, if God didn't help your husband, didn't help you, how can I? Because he was also a man. But thank God then he now helped this woman to think through the whole process. The first thing he asked her, what do you have in your house? What do you have in your house? Because the woman said, nothing else that they have there except, he said, it is a small jar of olive oil. A small jar of olive oil. And the olive oil is a product from the olive trees, and it's very expensive. Even today, if you go to buy a pure olive oil, but they say that's the most healthy oil that we can use for, especially for the heart. And so he said, that's what I have, a small jar of olive oil. Then Elisha started the process of recovery for this woman. He said, go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Take note. All your neighbors for empty jars. It's not jars that are full. He said, go and ask them for empty jars. And that's what people can easily dispose. I'm not using it. They will say, yes, I don't use it. But they are very crucial now, important to this woman at this time. But then let me ask another question. She wasn't aware of that she had neighbors, and that these neighbors could be useful. Assuming that she has been the toxic one that quarrels with everybody, fights with every neighbor, insults every neighbor. If she's so notorious, even the empty jars that they don't use, they wouldn't have given to her. Hello? In fact, they will smash it in her face rather than give it to her. She wasn't aware that she has neighbors, but thank God that she at least cultivated that other aspect of having neighbors with whom she is in good rapport. She has good relationship with them. That's the first thing. And then Elijah told her, say, don't ask for a few. Hello? She could have also said, empty jars. What am I accumulating them for? Is it that I'm going to help some people to get rid of their junks? Can you imagine? That attitude could have also affected her. Is my house now a dumping place that I will go and collect all the empty jars from my neighborhood and then put them in my house? He didn't know that this was the instruction that was being given to her for her own good. Thank God that she even realized that she has a pastor or a prophet who could give her good counsel. At times, we don't even know that such people are there. They don't know. We don't know. There was a time I had mommy telling my children, so you people, you better take advantage of your daddy. Your daddy is there. He's advising other people. He's giving them instructions and they are going somewhere. You people are there making yanga. You better get close and milk from your daddy. You know that advice, it was only one person, one of them that took it very seriously. And that's Joshua. And he's reaping from it. Even now, he has requested that every Saturday I give him at least 1 hour. Even up to now, to talk, to share. He asks questions. And usually, when I start speaking, he will say, this is exactly what the Lord has been laying in my heart. Not knowing what we have and not appreciating what we have. But others come from outside to make from us here. Just this past week, somebody was asking me this question. He said, there are these people in your ministry that we don't see in the things that you are doing. They don't show up, they don't come. And I told him, I said, okay, that's their own choice. Because everything that I do, I make it available for everybody. Like this interactive session, since we started it, there are some of our people that have not even come one day or shown up one day. But it doesn't bother me. But there are other people who have been benefiting from it, at least from the feedback we are having. There's this consultation that I have been, which is just one of those things that has happened since I've been leading money. We have this consultation that is going to take place in Abidjan next week. I mean next year. And I've talked about, we advertised it. Even I gave offers to our missionaries. I mean, people, our leaders within the leadership, both in Nigeria and outside. I said, okay, there's prospect of your participating. And all that people needed to do was to just fill in the registration. And initially we said, okay, if you fill in the registration and you can pay for your registration and make arrangement of how you get there, then every other thing will be taken care of. Yeah. And today, after this meeting we're having, we're going to have a money leadership team. We are going to have another meeting where we're going to discuss about those who are going to benefit from the subsidies. Because suddenly, one organization just released money to us, to support people who are not able to come from the place they are coming. And it's big money. And we're going to discuss this afternoon how it's going to be distributed. But the first condition for anybody to be considered is that you are registered. Because that shows that you are coming. And then also turned out there are people who had registered and paid who said they are no longer coming, that we should use their money to support other people. Do you understand where I'm going? And I'm the one in charge. If it becomes necessary, where will you start? If you start cutting it, where will you start from? Yeah, but that's how the things are. Especially this one that people who are volunteering say, okay, this one I paid for, use it to support anybody you want to. But if you're, because this afternoon we'll be discussing the criteria, discussing those who benefit based on the criteria that people have paid or even gone ahead to fill in the registration. Because what happens if you are filling the registration and you have not been able to pay your registration fees and all these things, and you are getting, and you are among those people to get the subsidy, what will happen is that they say, we will deduct the registration and accommodation from the subsidy, whatever is left we give you to add to your transport. Then it won't have cost that person anything. But if the registration, this thing has not been filled, there's no question of knowing that that person is even interested in coming. They're not going to carry the money subsidy to be hunting for people. But it is those who have already shown some interest that's going to benefit. Why I'm saying this is because these are those issues of life that at times we don't know what we have and we don't appreciate it. And this one I'm talking about because of the, coming, Ezekiel, or who is that? I think it's school students. So that we should not miss opportunities that come our way because we have not prepared ahead for it. Anyway, so he said, now go and get your neighbors, get these things from your neighbors, empty jars. He said, then go inside and shut the door behind you, and then your sons pour oil into all the jars as each is filled, and put it to the side. So he said she left him and shut the door behind her and her sons. And then they were the ones who were bringing the jars to her, and she was pouring and filling it. We've seen another level of this. It's not only that she had that small oil, She had neighbors who have empty jars, and these children, she didn't count them about among her assets. She saw them as people. In fact, they were the subject for her crying, because these only children that I have now, they are going to be taken away from me. But she didn't see them as asset. What do you have in your house? And at times, the way we behave, say, I don't mind those useless children. No child is useless. So. See, you can now see that those children that were to be carried away or taken away as collaterals, that they said that they are very valuable. There's no way that woman would have been pouring the oil and carrying it aside and bringing new this. Those children were there. And they became very good assets. And then verse 5 said, she left him and then they brought the jars, the children, the sons brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, bring me another one. Bring me another one. Because she has seen that this is the work. Oh, bring me another one. She said, Mama, the jars don't finish. Oh. The jars from all our neighbors. Look at what she inherited from all their neighbors. Empty jars. Said they all filled. Oh. And then, and he said, that was the time now that the oil stopped flowing, because there was no more jar. In other words, if she had more jars, the oil will continue to flow. She would have continued pouring. And she went and told the man of God, and he said, go sell the oil, pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what is left. See how making use of what she had helped her scale through all this. In fact, she became a rich man, or a rich person. Because others will have been coming, including the people who had empty jars and didn't know what to do with them. They would have been coming to her to borrow. Madam, we saw you the other day at the market. You saw all you finished. And now you have all this. You have cleared their debt. They had those empty jars, but they didn't know how to put it in use. It was the person who knew how to put them into use that now became somebody that they will be looking up to and asking, I beg, help us too. So this is very strong lesson that we need to learn. But let us continue. Yeah, so we have seen the examples of Elijah, Moses in the wilderness, and what God asked her. We have seen the one of this woman, and we have seen the one of the disciples. But then there are other things too that we have that we must be aware of. We have even promises that the Lord has made to us. They are riches we can lean upon. In 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 3, it says that God has given us all that pertains to life and godliness, and that is by appropriating them we become partakers of God's divine nature and escaping the wrath that is in the world. And then this one of the versions say God's power has given us everything we need. Take note of all this thing we need, and now in the promise that God has made to us. The promise that God has made to us, these things are inside them. And he said, by appropriating them, you become partakers of the divine nature of God. He said, all that we need, everything that we need for life and godliness, through our knowing the one who has called us unto his own glory. and goodness. Which means that all these things that God has given unto us, they are supposed to be used for His glory. Because it is when our lives are pleasing God that is bringing glory to His name. Remember what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, where He says, let your light, verse 15, say, let your light so shine before men that they will see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. So all that pertains to life and godliness the Lord has given unto us, we should use them for God's glory, so that people will see the life of God, the goodness of God manifesting from our own life as a blessing to them, and they will give God the glory. The other thing that we have that we need to use wisely is time. Time, this 24 hours that are in a day. Has more than the others. And it cannot be banked. The hours are not banked. You cannot bank them. You cannot store them and say, okay, I've used 1 hour today, or I used 5 hours today. Then next tomorrow I will use the remaining ones. No. Since the morning began, this is at 11:20, and our time started from 1 minute after, or 1 second after midnight. That's when this day started, and now we have spent 11 hours 20 minutes already. So what remains of the 24 hours will be maybe 12 hours or 13 hours something. And that's still much left from now on. But this 24 hours of 60 minutes and 60 seconds that make them up, so they are given to everybody like that. The president doesn't have more than it, more than the one you have. Dangote doesn't have more hours than anybody. Everybody has the same amount of time in a day. But what do we do with it? That is what matters. That's what will make the difference. And the Bible gave us this advice. It says, see then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is. In other words, make sure you are spending the time that you have doing the will of God, possessing the will of God, pursuing the will of God. And Uncle Mike Oye has taught us what he learned from this man, John Wesley, that the 24 hours we have in a day can be broken into blocks, 3 blocks of 8 hours. That we use one block of hours to sleep. Hello? I think we have talked about it here. To sleep. I know what it costs me if I deny myself some hours of sleep. Some hours of sleep when you are supposed to sleep in the night. If you don't sleep when you're supposed to sleep, and sleep also at least to that maximum of 6 hours, if not the 8 hours that is in that block, there's a way that your body demands compensation. Because if you don't sleep when you're supposed to sleep, then you will be sleeping when you're supposed to be working, when you're supposed to be awake. This is a natural thing that God has created, because it's at that time we sleep that our bodies are re-engineered. And if you keep awake when you're supposed to shut down so that your body can do its own work of recreation, you will not be able to make use of the daytime, because nature will want to demand all of it from you. I think I also shared with you what Uncle Mike told me when I went to him to minister to me, so that I will not be falling asleep every 5 minutes that I sit down. And when I told him, he said, "Hey, Brother Reuben, sorry, I pity you. You have accumulated debts of sleep." And he told me, he said, "Yeah." I said, "I must pay it, that it doesn't go away by casting of demon or claiming by faith." He said, "I must pay them." And you know, the delay of loading that, paying it when it should be, I'm still feeling them now, because I'm struggling to keep pace with the one that is now, but the old debt is still there. So whatever I pay, it will yeah, it's like when you owe money and then you put it, you recharge your this and that. The first of all, take the one you are owing. And these are natural things, and you say we cannot overcome it by faith or by claiming. Yeah. You say, yeah, we must redeem the time and make use of our time very wisely. You say, as wise, not or this. And then the greatest wisdom that we have is understanding what is the will of God concerning me, concerning people, so that it will be according to His will. That is where I'll spend my time. And we will see another one that they said there was a man who spent all his time accumulating wealth for himself, but towards God, his account was zero. And when the time came for him to face his maker, he said he regretted it. So these are things we have to. Then the other thing that we also have, which we have to use wisely, are the talents. I decided to summarize all these things now in those 3 key words. The first one was time. The other one was treasure. The second one now is talent. Before we come to treasures, the talent is that thing that God has given to us that we use, that makes us to be very creative, that we use to serve humanity and serve God. Talents. And everybody also has it. Yeah. The short man has a talent, which is different from the tall man's talent. The short man is the quickest to get something from the ground. But unless he climbs on something, he cannot get something that is up. But a tall man can straight off his hand and get something that is up, which the short man cannot reach. That's it. Everyone, and that's why nobody can say the other person is useless. You don't have anything to offer. He said, put them to use. Don't bury them. And we have this story in Luke chapter 19, verses 12 to 24. And we know the account now that the man who was traveling, he called his servants and gave them talents. Some 5, some 2, and 1. And he said to them, put it to use. Put them to use until I come. He said that when he comes, the person who had 5 talents, he said he had put it to use and he got 5 more. He was blessed by his master and given more territories to manage. The other one who had to did the same thing. Who had one say, now me go suffer for you. I know that when you come now, whatever I have made, you will reap it. So he decided to go and bury his talent. And it is like my people said, the what do you call sheep that is sheep that brings lamb. He said the sheep that is urinating on the floor of the master, and he think that is doing the master. He said he didn't know, because every urine that comes out first goes through his tail. He didn't know that it is his tail that is damaging, and he thinks that he's damaging the master's floor. And that's exactly how some of us behave. So he said he buried it, and then when the master comes, say, "Oga, I kept it safe." He brought it and said, "See your money. Count it very well. Is it not 1 talent? See it, I didn't even touch it." And then the master said, "Okay, if you don't know how to put it to use, why don't you give it to those people who will use, and then when I come, they will give me back my money." He said, "Okay, what will happen now?" Those who are standing by say, "Oh yeah, collect that one he has and give it to the man who has 5. They say, "Okay, but that man has more." He said, "No, he has more. But the person who has more will be given. But the person who doesn't have anything, if you multiply 0 by 100, what do you get?" Because he refused to do the right thing. And of course, he was even punished. They banished him to the place of gnashing of teeth. Then the other one is treasures. The third one is treasures, which were expected to invest in divine treasure, not in earthly pleasures. And we have these 2 examples. Matthew 6:19-21. It says, "Do not lay up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal." And then Luke 12:21. So he said, so is he who lays up the treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. This was the rich fool. Remember that story? The man that he spent his life accumulating things, planting and reaping. And then the day he says, "Oh, I have accumulated more, my soul rests." He said that night God demanded his life from him. And then Jesus said, "So will it be for anyone who is only interested in accumulating. But towards God, there's nothing. His account is 0. And I think this is a very good reason for us to also to reflect, including even the small things we get. Those small, let's say it's a small stipend or whatever it is that we get. When it comes to giving to God, we use the scripture, "Oh, this is too small. This is too small." Like my people also say, children, if you give them something, and then stretch out your hand, say, "Let them give you that thing," they will put it at their back. But then that blocks the way of their getting something again from that man. And then, if you want to test them, then bring something else and give them that's bigger. They will now bring out that hand they have put here to collect the one you want to give to them. And then people now who want to change reason, they just withdraw their hand. They say, "Can't give it to them." And of course, what they will do, they start crying, because that is selfish mode developing them. Because the Bible also says clear, it is by giving, it is blessed to give than to receive. But the natural man, the natural person, thinks of only getting, not giving. And that also leads only to being impoverished. If we know how to give, even the small that we have. Then we'll continue because of time now. Lessons that we learn from all the above, all these examples we have looked at, there are lessons we are going to learn from them. The first lesson is this: even the hoof is very useful. Remember that story or the statement of Moses when Pharaoh, and that was the strategy of the devil. Pharaoh deliberately negotiated for the things that God has endowed mankind with. And if we don't understand that and then know how to put ourselves in God's own side in fulfilling his desire for blessing us, we will end up on the wrong side. Moses had been called to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt. And the purpose is that they will all go and serve God. The first thing that Pharaoh did was to say, oh no, you can serve God here. You don't need to go out. Stay here and serve God. Remember, Moses told them, say, no, we cannot stay here and serve God, because what we will be doing will be an abomination to you. You won't like it. So we have to separate and go and serve our God. After agreement, he said, okay, you can go, but don't go too far. That was the second thing. Then after they said, we will go at least 3 days journey. He said, but who will go now? All of you going. Leave the children and the women behind. Leave the children and the women behind. The children that God has given to you, the wife that God has given to you, he said, leave them behind. Go and serve God, your God alone. Knowing too that they cry from home. The cry of the children, the burdens of the destiny, and the fact that the devil may make prey of them. That will haunt a man. And Moses said, no, all of us are going. We, our wives and our children, we are going. Then after that, now the last thing now he pulled was this one. He said, okay, you can go. Your women, your children, you can go as far as you want to go. But leave your hoofs. Leave your cattle behind you. Leave your possession behind you. And that's where Moses gave this answer. Our livestock also must go with us. Not a hoof shall be left behind. For we must choose some of them for the worship of the Lord our God, and we will not know what to use to worship the Lord until we arrive there. But the devil said, leave them behind. And some of us also are bought into that deception, that we try to live the things that God has given to us. We don't even appreciate it. And look at the word he used there. If he said even a hoof, we are not leaving behind. And I think I've explained how somebody translated the hoof. A hoof, we can't leave behind. And Moses was demonstrating that anything that God has given us, it is important. We cannot despise it. I say, what is this now? That's what the problem that the children of Israel had. They were crying for food and crying for food. And when God gave them manna, their question was, what is this? What is the name of manna? What is it? Whereas inside it, everything they need was there. They started demanding other things they thought from their own senses that they do. They say, what of the meat now? We know that there's carbohydrate. Then there is protein. What you are telling us, manna is protein. Where is the, is carbohydrate. Where is the protein now? And God warned them, say, no, that is not what you need. But if you want this thing, I will give you meat. But why, the Bible says, while it was in their mouth, their heart became lean. When they were eating it, their heart became lean. Whereas the manna was more satisfying. And these are the lessons that we have to learn. That what we don't have now, maybe that God has not approved it for us. And that's why we have to appreciate what we already have and be making use of it. And if God feels that we needed something else, he will add it. Because that's what the Bible also says to us in Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. It says, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Every other thing will be added to you. If God knows that there's any other thing that you need, he will add it. But choose first to do the will of God. So, even what is called a roof, that is considered useless in the mind and the eyes of men, it is very, very useful if it is what God has provided. Then the next lesson is, do not despise what you have, because it is the Lord who has given it to you. It's the Lord that has given. All good gifts come from the Lord. So that the Lord can. The Bible said that we cannot ask for bread and God will give us stone. But whatever God gives to us, then we should appreciate it, and we should not despise it. Say, this thing, manna, this thing. What is this one? Then the other one, do not despise your birthright. Remember somebody who did so. He said, we should not be like Esau, who for one morsel of food sold his birthright, just because he wanted to satisfy the desire and the hunger of the moment. He said, what will I do with birthright? Is it not the person who is alive that will answer firstborn? The Bible said he despised it and threw it away. He said, for you know that afterward, when he wanted to inherit the blessing, he was rejected. For he found no place for repentance, though he sought it diligently with tears. That what God has given to you, you didn't ask for it. Among all, everybody, God gave you that. And then you go and sell it off. Remember also another case of a friend and a brother who, through the privilege of his uncle, who was in a very high position that time, he was given a car loan, and he bought a station wagon, a Peugeot saloon. But then he was planning his wedding, and he was boasting that his wedding will be the best in the world. He had to go send people to do shopping for his wife from abroad. And the musician that came to play at the Bachelor's Eve was different from the one that played in the church. And the one that played in the church wedding, he went very far to hire them and paid. They used luxurious bus to bring them down. And then, after the wedding, and he had spent all that money, because what he did was that the car that he bought, he had to go and trade it in to get a smaller car. So he used the change to sponsor all these things we talked about. But then later, it dawned on him that he has messed it up, because it started with his not being able to pay his rent. The landlord had to take him to court. So, there are things that we should learn from other people and not even just go and make those mistakes again. Yeah, because if God considers us and gives us such privileges, we should not trade them for any other thing. We should be like, what's his name now? Naboth, who said, I will not sell my father's land. It's my birthright. And those who want to take the birthright by force, allow God. God will know how to deal with them, as God dealt with Ahab and his family. That's another lesson we need to learn. And do not despise the little beginning. After God spoke that it is not by power nor by might, but by his spirit in Zechariah chapter 4 verse 6, and he continues speaking. Then he gets to verse 10. He says, do not despise the day of the small beginning. And he now made a statement about Zerubbabel. And all these words have instructions from us. Do not despise. Do not look down upon it, because even the things that became great one day they were small things. But when we despise it, we are denying ourselves of greater opportunities in the presence of God. If we are making progress, we soon round up so that we can share our own views and ask questions if there's any. Then the other one is, do not despise your present situation, what you are going through. Don't despise it. Don't say, oh, that it is too much, because God is working out a purpose through them. So because your present situation is the soil in which the seed of tomorrow is planted. So do not despise your present situation, but the seed of your tomorrow is planted in the situation of the present. That's where it grows. That's the soil from which it will grow. Then, do not consume your tomorrow because of the pleasures of today. Pleasures of today make us at times to consume our tomorrow. And this is very, very true, even with young people. That the things they do in order to meet the pressure of the present time rob them of the blessings of tomorrow, of the future. I know of many cases like that, but let me not go into that now. But it is very true. Do not consume your tomorrow because of the pressures and even the pleasures of today. This is another one that is very interesting. Sorry. He said, there is seed there is seed in every fruit. The fruit is to be consumed, but the seed is to be planted to produce more fruit and seeds. Every fruit, except this day they have tampered with the fruits, that you cannot have orange without seed. The genetically modified this thing. So and that's what organism. That's what people have been doing. That's what the world is doing. So that in the future, you may not have any seed to replant. And they said it is done very deliberately, especially with Bigot and his group, so that they will be the only ones. If you want to plant that their seed or get that fruit they are given, you go to them to get it. That's another world monopoly that is coming up. So they are tampering with these things. And they say that some of these genetically modified organisms that they are doing, when you plant them in a soil, they will so dominate that soil that no other seed or no other plant can grow in that place. So that they will be the ones you will depend upon. That is where we are going now. See, yesterday he was talking about how that this year is the beginning of the period where there will be more deaths of children. Beget. Yeah. And all this sitting, in fact, in the same prayer conference, we're going to deal with this particular matter because it's going on there. They are both all over the government functions and all the NGOs to be promoting their own ideology, bring everything under their control so that you will not survive except you depend on them. But in God's natural plan, the thing I planned, he said, every fruit that has seed, there is some to eat, part to eat, and the other one to plant, to sow. And that is why the Lord made sure that everything that he created, he said he has the power to reproduce in itself through the seeds. The same thing happens even the blessings that we receive, the gifts that we receive. There are two parts in them. One is there's something there for food for you. Then there are some things back there to sow. If it is 10,000, or let me say 1,000, there is food there to eat. There is seed there to plant. And it starts with those small things until it goes big. And if we have started doing it, that we recognize that and we know that whatever God blesses us with, there's something for us to eat. And then there's another one to sow. So we don't eat the seed with the fruit, which is our last slide. It says, do not consume the fruit and the seed. That is what 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 10 tells us. It said that God, when we are sowing, giving, and supporting, he said that God who supplies seed to the sower and food to the eater will supply you everything, so that we will be sufficient in everything. You'll be sufficient in everything. Don't eat the fruit together with the seed. Even if you know that some seeds are not even good in the mouth. Maybe that's why God made it so that you throw it away. Yeah, because if you can't even go to plant it, throw it away. It can become a plant that will grow and become bring what do you call it now, fruits for the future. If you are entering our house there, you will see 2 orange trees and you are right. Mommy was telling me, they were reminding me the other day, we didn't deliberately plant those oranges. But they are growing, and one of them is so sweet, and it grows, it produces fruit throughout the year. And it is this well, I don't know what to call them. Passers-by. In fact, there was one day like that one woman and her children came. They brought sack and they were plucking. Yes, they pluck it and go, and they go to sell it. So it's not even that they are going to eat what they go to sell. And that orange is very sweet. It has started producing this again now, which will be the second or the third this year. But we didn't plant it. And somebody was gracious enough not to eat the seed. Just allowed it to, maybe it just threw it away. And then the thing has grown and is now providing support and food for people. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. So, in conclusion, there's a lot that God has given unto us. There's a lot that we have. Even the things we have accumulated, some of them we don't even know that they are there. And we may not even appreciate them. But as we said, today we're going to pray that God will open our eyes to see what we have, so that we stop complaining. And before we complain, let us have asked God. Because all these people who ask, hey, what am I going to do? What will I use? God called the attention to what they have. And then there are things also that we despise, which would have been also a source of support and provision for us. Because in this season, we don't need to suffer, we don't need to lack. But if we know how to make use of what we have, make wise use of what we have. And that's what is happening now. People are converting old things, using them to create new things. People are converting what they have and then using it to this. Even some people are also people who have houses that they don't occupy. They are now reshaping them, converting them, giving us some for rent to get money. They were living in big house that you don't even finish using in a year. You can't use them in a year. Why don't you convert some of them to other things that will be very useful to you and to mankind? But every one of us should tune our spiritual frequency to heaven, what heaven is saying. Because everything that is happening has been predicted. And then, even to bring it nearer home, yeah, the kind of politicians we have now, from the local village to the headquarters of God's country, all of them now are transactional. And they are all part of the system that the devil is building, with which is taking over the world system. And so we should see it that way. Because even this one we are talking about this GMO, this genetically modified this thing. Even our people, our government, our the people who head the different departments, they have all sold themselves to it. So it's very difficult to reverse it. So it is people too. People have collected money and they are pushing it. It's something that's happening even in Europe and in the United States. So the whole thing is part of the system that the Lord has warned us about, that is going to operate in these last days. If you can now hear people talking about telling other people to sell their country or sell what they have, and you know also what is happening in our own country. Let me say this. This is the time that every sensitive child of God would see that the scriptures are being fulfilled. And this is the time that the Bible says that when we see these things happening, that we should lift up our head, because our salvation is drawing near. All these things that are happening, they are not ordinary. Especially the things that have happened in the past, let me say, how many days. Did you know that your country, your own country, that could not fight have gone and invaded another country overnight, and they have caused distress to people there now, our neighbors. What we could not do in our own place. And then the United States people are taking our matter more serious. You know, their Senate, or what they call them, That's their Congress people. They are here. I don't know whether they've gone. Talking about our own welfare. But we, overnight, we have gone and invaded a country. These things are not just normal. We are very close to the time. And let me also add this. Next year is going to be more terrible. And that is why everybody should wake up. The time of playing religion, playing church, playing this in our past now. Because Jesus wants us to, he said that we should watch and then pray, so that that hour does not come on us unawares. And this is the time that Luke chapter 21 has become very real. All these things are happening. So, God also knows that they are there. And God also, he has his own plan on how to deal with them. But if they are not there, then we won't have known that the word of God is true. And if those things are not happening, we wouldn't know. We would just thought that maybe the Bible is a literature book. But it is a real word of God, warning us and showing us what is going to happen before it happens. And bringing it so home, that is so close to us, year from year. That is happening everywhere now. This our very peaceful Akobo. You know how many kidnappings that are taking place just these few days in this area? Or this Ibadan that Oyo said that it will be very peaceful. Do you know what is happening? So it's for us to wake up and be alert and to watch and pray and walk in wisdom. That's why we are sharing some of these things about how to live wisely in times like this. Because there are things that the Bible said and they're already happening. And they're already happening to us. So that's it. But God knows how to deal with all those kind of people. If God asks that way, there are many people that they would have been eliminated before we come. But God will not allow such to happen. If we allow, that's not the way God is going to do it, to give us peace, to make us go at peace. Because one thing is that even when we have enjoyed the peace and security, what did we do with it? Especially the church. Because it's our failure to do what we're expected to do that is now bringing all these things. And those things that, after this is not going to be the first time, when the early church, the church in Jerusalem, refused to go and preach the gospel outside. What did God use to chase them outside? When the descendants of Noah, who first received this commission before us, God said, go and spread, multiply, fill the whole earth. They came to the place of convenience, and they started building Tower of Babel and creating things, making all those things. How did God answer them? Confusing that and scattering them. So we are not the first generation, and I pray that we'll be the last, so that we obey God and let God continue doing, let the purposes of God be fulfilled. Because these things that are happening is to ripen the harvest. It's to ripen this harvest that is happening now, so that we will take advantage of it. That is the essence of this sharing today. God bless you. Amen.